Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something I find pretty fascinating, and that's urban lighting. Specifically how it impacts wildlife. I mean, we flip on the lights without a second thought, but you've sent over some really interesting stuff about this, like this document, how urban lighting solutions can support biodiversity. It really makes you think something as simple as light could actually be throwing things out of whack in the ecosystem.
It really is amazing, isn't it? It goes to show how everything's connected, and even small tweaks we make to cities can have these ripple effects we don't always see right away.
Exactly. So, no time to waste then. Let's shed some light on this whole thing, so to speak.
Right, right. Before we get into solutions, though, we got to understand the problem first. Just how IS light pollution messing things up for wildlife. A lot of people don't even realize it's an issue. They mainly think about it with like sea turtles and stuff. But what about on the land?
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. And our sources this time are really focused on the UK, right? What's going on over there?
Well, they've got a ton of different bats there. 18 species, in fact. And here's the kicker. Every single one is protected.
Wow, all of them. See, now that makes it sound more urgent, but honestly, I don't picture bats when I think city. How's light pollution even bothering them?
Think about it. They've evolved to use the moon and stars.
All right.
They need darkness to find their food, dodge predators. And on top of that, they're using echolocation. Their whole world is shadows and sound.
Okay, yeah, I get that. They're like fine-tuned for that.
Exactly. Then we come along, flood the place with artificial light. That messes with their senses. Now, instead of a clear path, it's this confusing jumble. They might stay in their roosts longer or even not go out at all because they're basically blinded by the glare, which means they lose precious foraging time.
It'd be like trying to read a map under a disco ball, wouldn't it? No wonder they're having a tough time. It can't just be bats, though. What about bugs?
You're right, it's not just bats. Moths, for example, they're drawn to light. Naturally, it's instinct. But these artificial lights totally throw off their whole rhythm. Makes them super easy prey, too. And that's a big deal because they're pollinators. They're already up against so many problems, and then we hit them with light pollution on top of it all.
That's so sad. You know, I hadn't even thought of it that way. See, this is why I love these deep dives. Always learning something new. Are there any other animals we should be worried about?
Definitely. Migratory birds are another big one. They travel at night, right? Navigate by the stars. But then city lights come into view, and boom, total disorientation. It's like trying to follow a map with someone shining a flashlight in your face the whole time. They get lost, exhausted. Some even die from running into buildings.
Oh, man, that is heartbreaking. It's amazing, and by amazing, I mean kind of terrifying, how something we think of as essential, like light, can have such huge consequences.
Really shows you how interconnected everything is, right? But hey, the good news is that we're not stuck with this problem. There are solutions, and one that's got a lot of promise is this dark sky lighting.
Yeah, dark sky lighting. It's pretty cool, actually. It's not just about, like, turning off all the lights and going full-on night mode. It's more about using light in a smarter way.
Okay, so less lights out, more lights, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. And get this. The UK is really leading the charge on this whole thing. They even formed a whole parliamentary group dedicated to it. Can you believe that? The All-Party Parliamentary Group for Dark Skies, or APPG for short, they've been around since 2021, raising awareness and trying to make things better.
Wow, a whole group just for dark skies. That's commitment. So I gotta ask, how does this dark sky lighting work? What makes it different from regular lights?
Well, a couple of things, really. One big one is this idea of shielding.
Shielding, like those cone things they used to put around candles? Yeah, kind of like that. It's all about directing the light where we actually need it instead of letting it spill out everywhere. Like think about those old streetlights, the ones that just blast light in every direction, even up into the sky. That's the opposite of what we want.
Right, so with dark skylights, it's more focused downward where it's actually useful.
You got it. And there's a fancy term for how much light escapes upwards, the upward light output ratio, or ULOR. The lower the ULOR, the less light pollution you're creating. Dark sky approved lights have a ULOR of less than 10% sometimes, which is pretty impressive.
So lower ULOR, happier wildlife. Got it. Anything else that makes these lights special?
The other biggie is the color of the light. You ever notice how some lights have that bluish-white color and others are more yellowy or even kind of reddish?
Yeah, like those super bright LEDs compared to, say, the warm glow of a fireplace.
Perfect example. That difference in color, we measure it in kelvins. And it turns out that those warmer colors, the ones with lower kelvins, are way easier on wildlife.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, it's all about blue light. You know, the kind you get from those cooler colored lights. It really messes with nocturnal animals. Think about it. We're daytime creatures, and blue light helps wake us up, regulate our sleep.
Yeah.
But for animals that are active at night, blue light at the wrong time is super disruptive. It can throw off their sleep, their navigation, even their hormones.
I had no idea it had such a big impact. So what's the solution? Just switch to those warmer bulbs?
Pretty much. Dark sky recommends using lights that are no more than 3,000 kelvins. Anything above that is getting into that harsh territory.
So those old sodium vapor streetlights, the ones with that orange glow, they're actually better for wildlife than those newer, super bright LEDs. Huh, who knew?
It's true. And speaking of dark sky, they've actually put together 5 principles for responsible outdoor lighting, kind of like a roadmap to make our cities more wildlife friendly.
Okay, color me intrigued. Lay those principles on me. What's number 1?
All right. Principle number 1 is deceptively simple. All light should have a clear purpose. We tend to just light up everything without even thinking if we need it or not.
Like leaving every light in the house on when you're only using one room? Okay, so how does this apply to, an entire city?
Think about a park at night. Instead of keeping every single path lit up 24/7, you can install motion sensor lights. That way, they only turn on when someone's actually on that path, providing safety and visibility when needed, but cutting down on unnecessary light when it's not.
That makes a lot of sense. Simple but effective. What's the next principle?
Okay, so principle number 2 kind of picks up where we left off with the shielding thing. It says light should be targeted. Basically, we got to be smart about where the light's going, how strong it is, even the angle of the beam. No stray light going where it's not wanted.
Precision lighting. I like it. So it's not just about having a light, it's about using the right light in the right way. What's next?
Number 3 is all about finding the sweet spot with brightness. It says we should aim for low-level lighting. So using the least amount of light to get the job done, and this ties back to that sky glow thing we were talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah. Sky glow. I've always wondered about that. You know that hazy glow over cities at night? Like the city has its own cloud even when it's clear. Is that what sky glow is?
That's exactly it. All those lights, especially the ones that aren't shielded properly, they send light up into the sky and create that diffuse glow. And unfortunately, it blocks out the stars. Really messes with the natural nighttime vibe.
It's like a giant light dome over the city. So by dimming things down a bit, we could actually see the stars again. I'm into it. What's the next principle?
Principle number 4 is all about control. That's where tech comes in handy. Think timers, motion sensors, even those fancy dimmers that adjust automatically.
Right, like those motion lights that only come on when you walk by, or the street lights that get brighter as it gets darker outside.
Exactly. Instead of just leaving everything blazing all night long, we can use tech to be more intentional. Lights turn on when needed, off when they're not. Saves energy, saves money, and the wildlife gets a break. Win, win, win. Right. And last but not least, principle number 5 brings us back to that whole color temperature thing.
Sticking with those warmer colored lights, the ones that are easier on everyone, especially our nocturnal friends. It's amazing to me how much thought goes into designing good lighting. Like, who knew there was so much to learn about light bulbs?
Right. And here's something else that might surprise you. Dark sky lighting, it's not just good for the critters, it's good for us too.
Oh, yeah. How so? Tell me more.
Well, for starters, think about all the energy we'd save if we only used light when and where we needed it. It'd be huge. Not just for our electricity bills, but for the planet too. And then there's the safety aspect. Have you ever been driving at night and those super bright LEDs practically blind you?
Tell me about it. It's like staring into the sun. Super dangerous, especially when you're behind the wheel.
Exactly. Dark sky lighting aims to cut down on that glare, which makes things safer for drivers, pedestrians, everyone. And, there's also the aesthetic side of things. A lot of people find those warmer colored lights. They actually make a space feel more calming and inviting, easier on the eyes, too.
It's like we can create spaces that are both people-friendly and nature-friendly. It's not an either situation, which I love.
Exactly. It's about realizing that we're all part of this big interconnected system. Even something as simple as flipping a switch can have ripple effects we might not even realize.
It really makes you stop and think about the little things, right? Like, what can I do differently? It's not about big sweeping changes all the time. Sometimes it's about awareness.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And by tuning in today, you've already taken that first step. So keep asking questions, keep learning, and see if you can find ways to apply these principles to your own little corner of the world. This has been an eye-opening deep dive,
I have to admit, I never really gave much thought to light pollution before.
but now I see it everywhere,
It's everywhere.
and it's affecting everything.
But the good news is that by understanding the issue and making conscious choices,
We can all be part of the solution.
so next time you're walking under the city lights,
Take a moment to appreciate the darkness.
and maybe even look for those dark sky approved fixtures.
It's a small step towards a brighter future for everyone.